you all for spending some time with us today. I know it's a busy time at the early part of the year. So as Anubin said, my name is Sean Souza, and I head up demand generation and marketing related activities at eDynamic. I've had the good fortune of working on both the client side as well as a marketer, as well as on the agency side as a consultant. And I've done this on 3 continents. So I've had the luck to be able to get exposed to a lot of different technologies and different types of tactics and strategies and so on. So hopefully you'd find this session interesting because it is something that's impacting all of us today. A little about eDynamic. We are a digital consulting firm. We've got centers around the world in different parts of the globe, through which we service a variety of different customers in different verticals, both mid-size as well as Fortune 50 and Fortune 500 organizations. And we do a bunch of different things, primarily focused around marketing technologies. So anything to do with marketing strategy, planning process, and the implementation of technologies that are centered around a number of tools, platforms that marketers use is what we do. And we do this across both the acquisition side as well as on the customer engagement side. So coming to today's topic, which is why mobile, and I thought we'll start this off with kind of an interesting video that I found on YouTube, which kind of in a nutshell provides some idea of what we're seeing. So I'll just play this for you, just the second 30 seconds of it, and hopefully you'll be able to hear it. So I hope I hope you were able to hear some of that audio. Basically, this guy, this is for hotels.com, and he was booking a hotel online while doing a free fall from an aeroplane, and that kind of in a nutshell says what mobile is doing to us today. It's the new frontier, or it's been the new frontier for a few years now, and you know, if you think about it, it's very similar to what happened a few years ago, about 20 years ago, when the web came around. It's changing the way we are interacting and the way we are marketing to our customers, and it's just forcing us to relook at what we are doing, everything we're doing today with email, with websites, with social, in a completely different way. In the B2B side, over 70% of the workforce in the US is mobile, and statistics show that about 64% of B2B decision makers are checking their email on mobile devices. So this means that whatever we're doing today, we need to now start extending that to cover this new frontier in marketing, and to look at it in a new, different way, and to be able to exploit it and maximize our initiatives by bringing these channels, this channel, into our mix. The other side of it is that mobile is also disruptive. We won't be focusing too much on the disruptive nature of it, but if any of you have been downtown and picked up, if you've got the Uber app and try to pick up get a taxi, you'll find that there are technologies now that are completely disruptive and that are mobile only. And there's a whole app business that's sprung up, and there are millions of apps now that are essentially changing the way businesses are run, and they're actually changing and creating new business models as well. But for our exercise, today we'll be focusing more on the first part, which is on just extending our presence or our initiatives and leveraging mobile in a more effective way. I think all of us have seen data that shows how the mobile landscape's changing. This is just to put things into perspective. When we talk about mobile, we're talking about both tablets and smartphones, and these are increasing all the time. And I think Gartner said that between this year and the next, which is 2014, there will be more people that will be accessing the web on a mobile device than through traditional means. So basically your laptop or your desktop computer. If you had to put a persona to who the mobile subscriber is in the US, it would be a she, and she would be primarily of Asian descent, and she would be 25 to 34 years old. So this is interesting. It also skews more towards a higher income, and that's, of course, the nature of some of these devices, which are fairly expensive. If you're doing marketing globally, then there's a slightly different spin to this, which is in markets like in Asia and Africa, you will find that more people are accessing or going online through their mobile devices and may not even have a computer. So it's good to understand your audience and how they are using these devices. In terms of tablets itself, again, this is getting increasingly fragmented. About 2 years ago, when Apple iPad first came out, they set the standard for tablets. Then Android came along. Now Android shares almost 50% of the market, and that's actually growing. You've got other products. You've got Kindle Fire, and last year we had the Microsoft launch of Surface. So the tablet market as such is again growing, and it's something that we may need to pay close attention to. Anirban, I've got a quick poll to do. So can you launch the poll, please?
Yeah, the poll is on, so.
Thanks. Can you close the poll? So almost a majority of you, about 78% of you, said that you did not have a mobile strategy, and that's not surprising because it's difficult to really think about mobile for demand generation and as a marketer, because there's a lot of stuff hitting you, and hopefully we will try to break it down and give you some insights and some practical tips to get started with a mobile strategy. The first step, like anything that you do with marketing, is to be able to make sure that you're measuring what you're doing. So if you're not tracking the devices on which your customers are reading their emails, then you have no knowledge of what platforms they're using, how they're using those devices, and in essence, you're going to lose out. So this is there's a really good document by Return Path, which is they do email tracking and deliverability, and I would urge you to read that document. It's very useful for understanding the impact of your emails on a mobile audience. And if you were wondering how do you do that, this is a snapshot of Google Analytics, and Google Analytics has a lot of really interesting kind of data on how people are accessing your website, visiting your landing pages through mobile devices. You can do it through brand, you can do it through the operating system, or you can do it through the physical devices itself. As you can see over here, there's the iPad, the iPhone, the Samsung devices, and so on. So a good place to start to understand where your audience is if your audience is accessing your material through mobile devices, this is a good place to take a look to figure that out. The second thing that you want to know is find out when your audience is actually using mobile devices. So there's a lot of data that shows that mostly customers or people are using their mobile devices towards the end of the day. So not during business hours, but either at the front end or after hours. And what we also see really interestingly is that they use it both inside and outside the home. So within the home, most of it is for reading material, checking emails, while when it's outside the home, it's mostly to do with being in transit. So they're on a train, on a bus, and they're checking their mobile devices there. In terms of the common activities on mobile devices, most of it is to do with email. There is some social, there's some gaming, there's a lot of reading as part of these activities. So really understanding your audience and understanding kind of where they are probably hitting your site and when they're hitting your site can be really useful in figuring out what type of a mobile strategy you need to have. And again, this is global. So this is a report from Europe, and it kind of shows the same thing. It shows that email, of course, over there, text is still big. So email and SMS are still pretty prominent. But there's all kinds of other things like location, searching, reading. All of these activities are pretty common, and they kind of form the top 5 activities that you would see that people do or use mobile devices for. There's also a slight difference in the way people interact with these devices. So if you look at smartphones, for instance, a lot of summary information is looked at on smartphones. So this is a Pew Research study done for journalists for a newspaper association, and they were looking more at seeing how people interact with news. And what they found was that smartphones are being used more for headlines and kind of summary information, while tablets are used more for in-depth reading. So if you've got white papers and things in that way, it makes a lot more sense to make them available in a format that people can then read on a tablet. Anybody, I think I've got one more poll on behavior, I think, or on activities. Thanks, Anirban. I think we can close that now. Anirban, can you share the results? I can't see the results.
Yeah.
27% people said that they know how the number of subscribers, and 70% said no.
Okay, great. So so that's interesting because if you look at the data, almost there's been a huge increase in the number of email opens on mobile devices, but actually about 50% or about half of marketers said that they did not know how many mobile subscribers they have. So that's more in line with what you told us, that there's just a small group of you that know who your customers are that are using mobile devices versus those that do not. The other side, the other aspect which we saw in the data was that apart from email, search is a big component of mobile. It depends on your business, and you can leverage this more or less depending on what you're doing. But the nature of mobile makes it such that people are very actively searching for things, and they have a certain urgency to it. And if you're able to tap into tap into that urgency and be able to be visible through mobile search with certain certain very clear action items like a click to call or download something, it becomes really effective. So when thinking about a mobile strategy, it's all about context. So there are 4 classic questions that you will need to ask. The first one is where. So where's your audience looking at your content? Are they on a train? Are they in transit? Is it before and after hours, as most of the other data was showing? So that's the first question. You can look at your analytics to be able to give you some insight into this. The next question is when. So again, is it during business hours? Is it during lunchtime? In the same way as when you do email marketing, everyone says you got to send out your emails between, let's say, Tuesday and maybe Thursday or Tuesday and maybe Friday morning. In the same way, it's good to really understand when people are looking at your content, whether it's an email or your web page or whatever it is. The other side to the when is and the where is that people don't really have a lot of time, and that means that anything that you want to communicate to them has to be really concise. And if you have a call to action, and that call to action has to be really prominent. You don't have a lot of real estate on smaller devices, so these are things that you need to consider when you think about the where and the when. The other is the what, and the what is what are they doing? There are 2 aspects to this. One is we saw that email is being used, search is being used, and both of these are related to web browsing and accessing your website or landing page. But there's also actions that you might want to do, and you need to really understand what those actions are. Is it to link to a website? Do you want to direct them to go and see something on a web page? Do you want them to forward an email? Do you want them to do social sharing and pass that through a LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter feed to their followers or Facebook friends and so on? Do you want them to register? Do you want them to take a poll? So really understanding the what, determining what you want them to do, as well as understanding what people are typically doing during this time, becomes kind of like those inputs for defining what your mobile strategy would be about. The final is the how. So we saw that there's a whole slew of mobile devices out there, but really understanding if there's if you're in a government organization, there's probably a high propensity of BlackBerry users. Depending on your business, understanding what platforms becomes useful for determining what type of design you build, the usability of the device. You can also leverage certain device-specific features that can make that experience a lot more pleasant. I think we have yet another poll, Anirban. Thanks, Anirban. I think we can close that now. Great. So about 60% of you said that you are interested in building a mobile-friendly site, and about 40% of you said you're very interested in creating mobile-friendly emails. And that's good because there are a number of other things like QR codes and building apps. We're not going to focus a lot on building apps. We will talk a little about QR codes. But these are the low-hanging fruit to engage and tap into your audience. And that's what we're going to talk about in the next few slides. The first thing we'll talk about is email marketing for mobile. When you think about email as opposed to your desktop, there are a few things to consider. The first is that you have a relatively small real estate. Most of the action will be done by your fingertips and not by a mouse. The second is context. So it's where and when and how your customer will be accessing this content or this email. The fourth is the environment in which they might be in. They might be in a crowded place. They might be on a bus or a train or a plane. So there's noise. It's fairly chaotic. So there's distractions, and with those distractions, how can you still get this customer to be able to act on whatever you were communicating to them on? And that leads to having a really clear call to action. Typically with email, sometimes you might have a couple of calls to action, one above the fold, one below the fold. With email, you, for the most part, do not have that luxury. So having a very concise, tight message with one single call to action usually helps. In terms of best practices, there are some simple rules. Using large fonts, being able to scale for the device. There are multiple devices, so your email needs to be optimized for these devices, and we'll talk a little about scaling and what that means. We talked about clear, large calls to action, so having big buttons, clear buttons. Even the color scheme sometimes helps. We talked about environment, we talked about the where and the when, and all of those are become important suddenly when someone's got other distractions and they're not like on a computer, they're not looking at a big screen and staring at one thing alone. In terms of You're going to make the actions really obvious. The buttons need to be really large. Any links that you have need to be really large because, again, people are using their fingers and accuracy, they can't be very accurate. So you don't want to clicking the wrong links and going to the wrong place. And then finally, most people are, if you're on a train, you are perhaps holding the bar in the train with one hand and then holding your phone with the other. Most often, people are using, especially smartphones, they're using one hand. So think about that when devising your email. There's a lot of debate about what type of design to build. There are essentially two types of email designs. One's called scalable and the other is called responsive. And there are pros and cons to both. In terms of a scalable design, what you essentially have is an email that is built with tables in the same way as you'd build a normal email. But it's kind of elastic. So on a smaller device, it collapses, and you can then see the same email with clarity. The calls to action are clear. By default, you typically use larger fonts for these types of emails, but you have greater coverage across more platforms this way. The other is responsive design. With responsive design, you use CSS code, and it's very similar to how you would design websites. And essentially what happens is there's some code that you put at the top of the file that says if the browser width is so and so, so in the case of an iPhone, for instance, if it's 480 pixels, then display this this chunk of HTML, and if it's another size, show this other chunk of HTML. The downside to responsive design is because it's got CSS code and certain webmail, even on an Android device, if you're using the Gmail app, it will not show. The same with Hotmail. The other downside to this is that your code becomes 2 or 3 times as long, and this might impact the deliverability of your email as well. On the other side, responsive design is what you would call true mobile, while scalable design is kind of a something that's passable. It just makes the email more mobile friendly and more readable. To understand really what works and what does not work, I mean, we use Litmus internally. It's a great tool. If you're using marketing automation or email marketing tools, some of them have built-in testers that you can use to view your email across multiple devices. We typically use it to test designs and make sure that across multiple platforms like Android, BlackBerry, different versions, Windows Mobile, and so on, your email displays correctly. And that's a good kind of bellwether to see how your email will ultimately be received. A big group of you said that you were all interested in building a mobile-friendly site. And there are some really interesting things to consider when building a mobile-friendly site. The first and foremost is not just the aspect of shrinking down your website and making it fit a screen, but there's something else which when we talked about the where and the when and the how. It's also context, and typically when people are searching or looking for your website on a mobile device, there is a certain urgency to it. It might be that they are in a different stage in the buying cycle, or they might be looking for something and there's a certain urgency to it. And understanding what that context is can really help you define how you should cater, how you should craft your mobile face to the world. So in order to do that, one of the first things you would do is or what we do typically is we take a web page, and we do this more often than building web apps and things in that way, but you take a page and you prioritize all of your content. And then what you do is you take it in different formats, and then you would say, how would I want to present this content to my audience in all of these different devices? And the priorities will change depending on the real estate available. So if you've got certain key criteria, like for instance, over here, the sign up now button is right on the top, and that's a clear call to action. So you'd want to put your sign up now button somewhere up in the area of your screen that's visible. Anything ancillary then has to go below. And the same thing applies for other devices as well. And then depending on the real estate, you would essentially take all of these code blocks, so these content blocks that are prioritized, and then determine how you would want to present those. Like email, with web, there's also this concept of adaptive versus responsive. One basically means that you can try to make an existing website work kind of passively well on mobile devices, and the other is building a completely unique mobile experience from the ground up. Most large organizations typically, if they've got a big mobile infrastructure project, they would go the adaptive route. The adaptive route is kind of what would be considered true mobile, in the same way as with email. Responsive is considered more true mobile than scalable. With adaptive, what happens is a lot of the checking happens at the server side. So it happens behind the scenes before a page is even loaded. So there's a sensor that basically detects what your page looks like, and then accordingly, your web servers present content accordingly. Now, sometimes you may have noticed when you're on the road and you try to go to a website, you actually get routed to the web app, and that's only because they're using some form of an adaptive design where the server says, oh, you're on a Samsung Galaxy or an iPhone 5, so would you like to download the app instead? The more simple way of doing it is using a very scalable format is responsive design. And ironically, for email, responsive design is true mobile. On the website, responsive design is not considered true mobile. But you can still use CSS and JavaScript, and what happens is that instead of the server determining what format to present, your device determines what format to present. Again, your code's a little longer over here, but the customer's application or device is determining how to display that content. This also means that your customer needs, or the customer's device needs to do some of the heavy lifting. And what that means is you would prefer to make your sites less code heavy, fairly light, especially if you've got someone who's on not a very robust connection, wireless connection with their mobile carrier. Again, testing, it's all about testing. So there are paid services. Adobe's got a great tool. There are a few free ones. There's a designer by the name of Matt Kersley, and he's got a really useful web page where you can test out designs. Google has their own. It's called howtogomo.com. Very useful. Just put in your web address and check it, and you'll immediately see what it looks like on a mobile smartphone. The next aspect of this is search. So we talked about web and we talked about email, but a very powerful component and a very easy component to use is mobile search. And a lot of marketing people are doing a lot of PPC campaigns. It's very good to think about extending that into the mobile world. And this is an example of Google. Bing's got something similar, and that is a number of other formats that are specific to mobile. So you've got text ads, but then you've got text ads with location extensions. And what location extensions mean are basically a couple of extra links. So for instance, a phone number. If you're in B2B, for instance, and you've got regional salespeople, or regional offices, it's actually quite useful to probably put a local phone number for someone to be able to contact them, contact that local sales rep. There's another. So relating to the phone number is what Google calls click to call. So you can not only just see the phone number, but you can click it, and just because you're on a smartphone, you're able to actually put a call in immediately. So you can get other actions or conversion points out of your search advertising using mobile. Site links is another option, and what site links does is if you've got, let's say, a big website with maybe 200 pages or 5,000 pages, but you're doing a specific campaign and you want to build and it's a mobile only campaign, and you want to direct them to a specific area on your website. Mobile ad site links enables you to do that. So you can create these unique URLs, do an ad campaign, and direct them to those pages, which can act as conversion points. If you develop an app, or your organization does develop an app, you can use click to download. If you've got some form of a document, a widget, or a calculator, or something like that you'd like them to experience, then click to download is another action point that you can incorporate into your search. And these are all very unique to mobile. Location's a big opportunity, and if you're in a situation where you are able to leverage location, mobile just lends itself to leveraging location really well. Again, in terms of building mobile sites, there are some really great tools out there. So in the same way as you can use, if you want to create a mobile-only campaign for search, you can also leverage Google's tools to build you a mobile website. And this happens almost automatically through Google services. So you can go in there, it will automatically convert your web page into a mobile-friendly version. And what's more is you can even host it through Google. So if you see here, it says claim your mobile site. If you click that link, it generates a URL that becomes your own URL, and you can have a series of landing pages and have all of them set up, and they can just cater to your mobile campaign. So lots of really easy stuff to do, and again, broaden what you're currently doing by leveraging some new opportunities using mobile devices. Another aspect of search is, we saw that there are certain times of day when people are more active. You can do what's called day potting, or be able to stretch out your campaign and maybe put mobile campaigns at either end of your business day, and that way be able to really extract greater value and direct people to mobile-friendly landing pages and get higher conversions by optimizing both your ads as well as the destination points that you're using by just using the time of day to determine when you're doing those campaigns. What I also wanted to mention over here was ebooks and white papers. One of the standard marketing devices that most B2B organizations use are white papers and thought leadership material, ebooks, industry articles, and so on. And typically in the past, you'd go and print it out, and then after that you went online with PDFs. But now you can actually take it a step further and publish this through iTunes, through Amazon, through the Android marketplace. And given that a lot of people are doing their reading after hours or in transit or catching up on material, you suddenly make your material a lot more portable, and get it in the hands of people who can read it on kind of the device that they choose to read it on. So extending your content not just through to PDFs, but now also bringing it into iTunes and making it available. You can also do them free, or if it's a substantial document and you want to charge for it, you could do that as well. In order to do that, you can go directly to iTunes and download the iBooks author, and you can publish it. It has all of the tools to make it really easy for you to publish it. Amazon's got a similar tool. Android's got a similar tool, and it basically takes your document and you can put a cover to it and do some really interesting things. If you don't want to go through the hassle of doing it yourself, there are other applications out there that will help you convert that content as well as distribute it, and not just distribute it to iTunes or Android, but across all of the other marketplaces that might exist, like the new Windows Surface and so on. So lots of interesting new ways in which you can extend what you're doing with any collateral material that you might have, any documents that you might use to kind of set yourself up as an expert, as a thought leader in the business in which you're operating. Finally, let's look at video. Everyone's using video these days. YouTube became big and everyone's got a YouTube channel. But one really interesting fact is that a lot of people are now are actually watching YouTube not on their desktop devices but through their mobile devices. And as you can see from this kind of side-by-side comparison, number one, you've got really small real estate. You've also got a lighting issue. Apart from that, like we talked about email and like we talked about web pages, you've also got to consider the environment, the distractions, the noise, ambient light, and so on. And all of these impact how someone experiences the video that someone might have shared, or you may have provided a link through an email to watch the video, and they landed up on this video. So when you think about your video, there are a few kind of key things to think about. So one of them is you're on a relatively small device, so avoid really small text. Again, thinking about the ambient noise and distractions, you want to make sure that you're using the highest quality audio at the highest possible volume. You want your pictures to be brighter. If you've got any links, don't just put URLs in there, but actually make them linkable. And if you are demonstrating something, then it's always a good idea to actually close up on what you're showing rather than just point to it, because again, you're on a small device and it's going to look really tiny. So just a few kind of, it's almost common sense when you think about it, but really practical kind of things to consider when taking a video that you might have and then saying, okay, I want to make this mobile friendly. I'm also covering QR codes, and I know a lot of you are not really interested in QR codes, but I'll just cover it. In B2B, essentially, you know, if you're doing a lot of stuff still on offline using direct mail and things like that way, it's a great opportunity to get people to go online. There are certain industries that have really taken off with QR codes, especially real estate, where you can do virtual tours and watch videos and things like that way using QR codes. But for especially a B2B audience, you can use QR codes in a lot of interesting ways. I mean, the first thing is probably on your business card. So rather than just have a static business card and get people to call you or type in a web address, they could just scan your QR code. Imagine if you're in a trade show or at a conference, you can give them the code and they can scan that in. The good news is also that if they lose your business card, now they've got your information on their mobile device. If you're doing trade shows, any type of promotion, QR codes become really useful. Any promotional material. So if you're giving away, anything from coffee mugs and notepads to T-shirts, if you want to link to anything from your social media site to getting people to visit visit your website or take a poll, do a survey, follow you on Twitter. There's all kinds of things that you can get people to do online, and all they have to do is point their phone to a code. And QR code generators are freely available. A lot of them are free. You can just put in a URL, it'll generate the code for you. You can just grab that and then slap it onto any printed material. Some people actually use QR codes even online. Doesn't really make sense because you could just put a hyperlink. But if you want to do it that way, you could do that too. I'm not a big fan of using it online, but that's another method. So kind of when thinking about mobile strategy, things to consider is there are a number of obstacles that people face when thinking about mobile strategy, and sometimes it's just because someone up in leadership said we got to do things with mobile, or we got to have this, we got to have a QR code, or we got to have a mobile-friendly email, and it's always good to take a step back and be more strategic about looking at your data, looking at your audience, where are they experiencing your content or your website or your emails, when, how, looking through the data and then making a decision. It might be a bigger decision, it might be a more of an overarching mobile strategy, or it might just mean an extension from what you're doing and covering what you're doing using mobile. What helps, because everyone's really busy, is to get someone within your team or within your group to be that mobile champion. So be able to explore all of the various options that are out there, to be able to look at that data and to understand the landscape as it pertains to your business, and then come back with recommendations. As well as work with vendors, work with agencies, and work within IT, within the tech teams in your organization, to be able to have a more thought through kind of mobile plan, mobile strategy. I think that covers it. Anyone, do we have any questions?
Yeah, we do have a lot of questions.
Okay, we have about 10 minutes, so let's see how many we can get through.
Okay, the first one is, we are going to implement a new mobile website. What should be our next steps?
Right. So I think the first thing is looking at your data and getting some and doing some analysis on your your customer base. If the other thing that you're going to look for is what is the objective of the site, in the same way as you would do it with your website. So I think doing some analysis and doing some research through your web analytics, I think that's the first step to doing that. I think after that, if you've got a fairly large audience that's on mobile, eventually everyone will be on mobile. But if you think that there's a significant need for mobile, then I think the next discussion to have is what type of mobile strategy do you want to have? Do you want to have kind of a web app type strategy where you build it from the ground up using IT, using technology resources, and actually build out a very customized web application, or just adapt your current site to be mobile friendly, to be able to be read and accessed quite easily through a mobile device. Any
Yeah.
other questions?
Yeah, I have the next one would be, how much time does it take to develop a responsive web design?
Right. So responsive web designs are relatively easy to do. There is some planning, as I had mentioned, where you look at all of your content blocks and do some form of prioritization of those blocks based on different devices or different screen sizes. But other than that, it's actually quite easy to then develop the code, which is, as I mentioned earlier, it's all JavaScript and CSS based. So it's just a style sheet, and then the style sheet determines the look and feel of your site. So depending on how big your site is, it could be a couple of weeks of work, or it could be maybe a couple of months or so. But you could take an existing site. There might be some graphics work to be done based on certain prioritization of content, but you're not looking at if it's a fairly compact site, you're not looking at a lot of time.
Okay. The next question would be, do you have any experience working with non-profit clients looking to expand their mobile web strategy to reach their next generation donor base?
Right. I think we do. I think we worked with a couple of nonprofits. We do a lot of work with educational institutes as well. If we get your information, we can be more specific about it. But eDynamics are fairly experienced organization with having done websites and doing a lot of marketing for a variety of clients. So we can definitely talk about a specific solution. But yeah, on the nonprofit side, yes, we've done some work in the past.
Okay, Sean. The next question is it true that we have to let go of unimportant elements of our website while designing a mobile website? Is there a space restriction?
Right. So it's not about letting go; it's about reprioritization. So again, you've got to look at the device, you've got to look at the purpose, you've got to look at the objective, and accordingly decide, is this really important or will this be a distraction? So in the same way as you would do it with any other piece of content, you look at the channel and you look at how you can optimize for that channel. So it doesn't mean you have to let go of it. It means that it goes further down and someone has to scroll. People do scroll. It's not that they only see the first screen and they walk away or they leave the site if they're on a mobile device. But you've got to prioritize what you want the person to act on, and then the rest of the ancillary information can follow that below the initial screen fold.
All right, Sean. We have time for another one probably. Is download speed an issue with mobile websites?
So it can be a concern. It all depends on your coverage. So you can have issues if you are in a remote location. If you are in an urban area, I know, for instance, that even in New York you can have issues with access sometimes. So one of the key things to consider when building out a mobile app, a mobile site, is determining in your strategy, do you want to build an app or do you want to build a site? And if you're building a site, then your mobile version of that site should be fairly light, with a very clear call to action, and not try to pack a whole bunch of web material on a small screen.
Okay. There are a few more questions, but we'll have to get back to them after the webinar. At this note,
sure. We've got one more. I think we could take one more. We've got about a couple of minutes left.
Okay. So let's take this one. With mobile technology changing every day, mobile screens change too. In such a scenario, won't it be difficult to create a design that goes well with all the screens?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it can be overwhelming. I think for the most part, though, the screens kind of fall under 2 or 3 categories. So in tablets, you're looking at anywhere from about 7 inches to about 10 inches, and on your mobile devices, I think you're looking at about 3 to 4 inches in terms of width. So you will cater to the lowest common denominator, and of course, if you've got more real estate, then you've got more real estate to do that. But you wouldn't typically when we design mobile versions of sites, we bucket them into 2 or 3 categories, and we don't develop for every single screen width.
Okay. Probably we can take another one.
Sure.
When running a mobile ad campaign, do you recommend sending prospects to a landing page with an inquiry form, or to take the soft approach and send them to a page to learn more about the product first and then capture their information?
In mobile, it's all about urgency. So if you've got, if you want to take them to a landing page, then take them to a mobile-friendly landing page then and there. If you don't, then you're going to make that experience a little more difficult, and there's a good chance that your customer or prospect will abandon you, or abandon the site. So I would recommend that if you can get whatever action you want that customer to perform, do that then and there.
All right. So I would like to thank everyone for attending our webinar. We hope you found it informative. There are a few more questions unanswered, but we'll get back to them after the webinar. The recording for today's webinar will be available on our website within next 3 business days, and we'll also be sharing the webcast URL with all the attendees via email. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you all, and thank you for joining us. Thanks, Anirban.
The organizer has